Welcome to KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're telling the stories behind Kansas City nonprofits and the people behind them. KC Cares is the intersection of the profit and the nonprofit community, making Kansas City a better place to live, work, and play. This KC Cares segment is brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation, www.kauffman.org. I'm Ruth Baum-Biggus. In the past years, the world has experienced numerous natural disasters, from tsunamis to earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, and flooding. These acts of Mother Nature take a human toll, causing death, destruction, and displacing surviving children and families. Then there are wars that cause immeasurable devastation. The human survivors need help with the very basics and quickly. Stepping in to help is the United Aid Foundation, born from the passion of two Kansas City siblings, John and Elizabeth Alex. They take action through the foundation, providing direct aid to people in crisis. Most recently, this dynamic duo and the organization they created has been providing much needed aid to Ukrainian refugees. How did they make this magic happen? Well, John and Elizabeth are joining us to share their story of compassion, determination, and commitment to make a difference in our world. And we're so happy to have you both.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
We got to love technology. We can pull everybody in from everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure for our audience, many of our audience are familiar with you, Elizabeth, for your years working at KSHB and your visibility, and compassionate types of things are something that I think folks who have followed you are not surprised by. Tell us a little bit, though, about this unique journey and doing it with your brother.
Yeah, it was really with my brother, my naughty little brother, when we were little kids. I was going to Sri Lanka after the tsunami there in 2004, 2005 time. And I was following Heart to Heart International, doing some stories there. And my husband had just died a few months earlier, and John just said, I don't think I like you going there by yourself. I'm going to ask Heart to Heart if I can go too. So he signed up, and he happened to know people from his time at Columbia University who were Sri Lankan, who had family there, especially in the Tamil Tiger area. So he came with us, saw tremendous need, and then John came back and formed this organization in record time.
Somehow, John, I don't think it was that easy. Now's the time to tell on your sister. And you can tell us the real scoop behind that. Let's put on a show kind of concept.
No, there's not. I mean, it's factually correct. But, at that time I was sitting in a hotel, talking with all these people about when the next meeting was going to be. And I just grew restless, frustrated that nothing was happening. So, I knew a woman in New Jersey. She was Sri Lankan. She happened to be pretty well connected in the government. I called her on my analog phone at the time, from Sri Lanka. And she hooked me up with her cousin, I think. And we took off towards the devastation. So she handled the creation and the name. I didn't have anything to do with that. But by the time I got back, we had a fundraiser set up, and I think we raised $250,000 in a week or two, and went back and rebuilt 3 villages. So that's kind of how it, that's the genesis right there. And I worked for the Red Cross in New York City for years. And this was a lot better. So we're still doing it. Yeah, however many years later.
Kind of surprising a little bit, in how it's grown and scaled, but it's still very direct to very individual people, which I love the idea that a Red Cross or some other organization can help lots of people. But our organization, we do help big groups of people at times, but you often know the people you're helping, and you get to know them and get to meet them, which is a pretty cool thing too.
So you start this foundation from passion that you both had from what you were actually seeing. At the same time, you both were pretty well connected. Share with our audience a little bit about how those connections were able to move you forward so quickly. And any tips you have for folks out there who say, hey, I've got an idea, I would love to do that.
John?
Who wants that one? Okay.
John, you can go for it.
Well, I would say I was into the communications part. I helped write a lot of things for the website and get the social media going and still do social media. John really took on the part of really making the big connections that needed to be made.
John, how do you do that?
Well, let me start. I mean, from the beginning, it's all of our family's endeavors really came from my sister Elizabeth, so she really gets that credit. From my earliest remembrances of, hey, let's make sure these people have Thanksgiving too. That don't have it, or they don't have power. How do we pay their power bill in the winter? So these kind of things were really started by Elizabeth. She was my initial inspiration for sure. You do it by doing it, right? Hey, I want this to happen. So I just would go out and work it until it got done. I mean, it's really no more complicated than that. Is more of, I needed funds. I'm lucky. I work in Midtown Manhattan. I work for a financial firm. I have friends and clients that happen to be wealthy. And our initial thing was, hey, and it still is, if you want to know where your money's going, to see what you bought with it, with a receipt, get a picture of me giving it to this person whose name is whoever. And, maybe that's better than some of these other large organizations that have these huge fundraising operations. But again, I'm lucky. I have a lot of amazing donors who happen to be personal friends of mine, and they like our model. They know where their money's going.
So 2004, you established, you're responding to the tsunami. What was next? And if you can talk
Katrina.
A little bit about how you scale up. I mean, I was just fascinated in reading and prepping for this today. I mean, you seem to have people ready to go and stuff ready to give. Katrina was the next one. That was a biggie.
Yeah.
So how did that all come together?
Gary Morris from Heart to Heart called me. I was out on my back deck in New Jersey watching football or something like that with my feet up, and said, hey, John, can you get to New Orleans? Because they don't have any medical supplies there. Sure, I can. So we got some 24-foot trucks. I know some doctors in New York City. They got into action, got everything we needed from all the hospitals donated in the New York City metropolitan area. And we got on the road. So, we showed up, we unloaded, and then we went and picked up some nuns from some lower Ninth Ward nunnery, if that's what you call it. And we drove them out to Lafayette, Louisiana, which I had, my wife was from that area at the time. And we stayed out and worked at the Cajun Dome for another, 10 days or 2 weeks. So, it's just about, we'll find a way to get it done. And we seem to attract similar people to our organization, people that want to do things and get it done. And, so we have volunteers from really all over the country, some international now. It's been amazing. It's been a lot of fun.
And, adding to that, I think I like what you just said, the volunteers and where they come from. A lot of them are our own family members, our spouses, our children, our nieces and nephews. So that's been really fun. But Houston after Hurricane Harvey was a big initiative for United Aid Foundation, and the organization took a neighborhood in Houston, identified a neighborhood, and worked in that neighborhood, helped demolish moldy kitchens and bathrooms, and then went back and rebuilt them. And then some of the people who lived in that neighborhood now go with United Aid Foundations to other places that need that same kind of help, which is, to me, that's been super cool.
So
yeah,
go ahead, John, please.
Paying it forward. That's all.
I think it's so interesting. We hear often how nonprofits struggle to get volunteers. Beyond the people you've helped, how do you go about that? Do you do recruiting? And what's expected of volunteers when they come to work for you all?
That's a good question.
Elizabeth,
well,
I'll start on that one.
I'll start it, but I think John's better too, because I go to as many of these things as I can. John seems to have a little more flexibility, but I think we do have a lot of people who reach out through our website and social media who want to volunteer, but we kind of need to know them. You need to know if they're the kind of people who can go someplace and sleep on the floor, or who won't complain if it's cold or if they don't get a lot of food. You kind of really need to have people who can, who are flexible. And you don't always know that until they show up. So vetting them is a really big thing. And but I don't think we've ever had a big problem of finding volunteers. I think it's a fun group and it's fun work, and so people want to do it. I think. John?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I can't have somebody in Port-au-Prince flip out on me. And it's, or Sri Lanka when there's, dead bodies up in the trees. I mean, we go to crazy places that are still potentially dangerous. And, I'm not bringing high schoolers along that think they want to be in AmeriCares or something, over the summer. That's not what we do. It's pretty intense. And it's a certain profile of people that, Elizabeth and I know well, that come with us. So I've had everybody. And if we're doing a United States, if there's, go ahead.
No, I just want to throw this in. We're not reckless. We're not reckless. We're very intentional. So continue, John.
No, we're not reckless at all. And safety is a big deal, obviously. But by the same token, you're going to see things, look, just to take Hurricane Harvey, we brought people there, that had troubles. I've had people in Haiti that have had, it's emotional. Seeing a family that's had all their property, all their memories, all their photos, all their trophies, and whatever they had as a family that recorded that history of them is now all out on the front yard in the trash heap. People get really emotional, and you just, we're there to do a job, and we can't crack. And, depending on what it is who I'll bring with me to at least the first time around, just to make sure everybody's safe.
How do you train then your volunteers? We'll talk about Ukraine in a couple of minutes, because I know that that's been front and center for you. But let's say I say, yeah, I'm in, I want to go do this. What can I expect? Once I sign up, obviously a conversation with you and you're going to vet it, but how do you get us ready?
Yeah. For me, I'm really on the operational side. So, I want to bring people that have knowledge of what I think I'm going to need. So, I'm the only one with no skills.
Not true. Not true.
I wouldn't say that either.
Other than to be, I can lift heavy things and carry them places. That's it. So we have engineers, we have builders, we have firefighters that are also EMTs. We bring doctors. And then there's a couple of schlubs like me that, just carry stuff and do what we're told. So it depends on what it is. So, and right. What the disaster is and what our mission there is. So if we're rebuilding people's insides of their kitchens and bathrooms, I've got a great crew of guys from down in Florida, Snovio Villa and his group, who they're construction guys, and that's what they do. So.
Yeah, and I think some of the training wise, I don't know if you call it training, but there are a lot of discussions, a lot of phone calls, some Zoom calls, and a lot of, I think, just making sure people understand what is happening and what their role is, although they may be asked to do things outside of the scope that we described for them, and asking if they're okay with that. And when I went to Ukraine, there was a colleague, a friend who's in healthcare from Canada. And she'd been to medical missions with me before to Romania, really wanted to go. And I had to just tell her it's very fluid. I don't exactly know what we're going to be doing. I have an idea and I know, but we're following other teams and what they've done, but the situation there is so fluid. It may not be the same thing. So as long as she understood that, and of course she did, she'd been on missions before, she was great. But I think some of the training is a lot of conversations and making sure they understand that we have skills that we want them to use, but they may have to develop some new skills or, do something a little bit different than they expected. So I think that's how I view it in terms of the training.
Yeah, very fair.
We're talking with John and Elizabeth Alex of United Aid Foundation that they created and now has blossomed to go to many places in the world that have had just devastating things happen. I know you did the tsunami, you've been to Haiti, you've been to Puerto Rico, you've been to Nepal. Logistically, how do you get in there so fast? I don't think you can downplay the red tape that it takes. Now, maybe you've got a secret thing you don't want to reveal. John, since you're the operational guys, how do you make that happen?
He would be the one to answer that, yes.
Believe it or not, basically it's all about connections. So I fervently believe in the 6 degrees, somebody everywhere. And, our key to the Ukraine was the orphanage that Elizabeth and co were running for years. Nepal was a client of mine called and said he knew a Nepalese guy who was a bartender at the Marriott in Boston. Well, he happened to be hooked up with, some very high level people in Nepal. We had instantaneous, assistance as soon as we landed. It was unbelievable. And so, Haiti, we went with heart to heart. They decided they didn't want to cross the border, the first team, because it was too dangerous. So we met up with some other guys that had been in country for many, many years and went in. And it's all been connections based.
Elizabeth, generally when a team from your organization goes in, how long are you there?
Usually it's not a huge amount of time, but often there are repeat missions with other people. And since it's all volunteer, you can't send somebody in for a couple of months, unfortunately, as much as everyone would love to do that, but their employers would not look favorably on that. So it's usually about 10 days to 2 weeks. And then another team may come after that, or 2 or 3.
And do your volunteers pay their own way? Is part of it covered by your organization?
It depends.
Yes.
Go ahead. He's also the money guy,
Yes is the answer. If you can pay your own way, please do. If you need some assistance, we're willing to assist. If I think I need people there, again, in a specialized, whether it's building or an engineer or somebody like that, that needs me to pay for them, we'll pay for them to go. So the answer is yes to all those things.
Yes to all the above.
Yes.
I'll toss this to Elizabeth first, who will probably toss it back to John. I like this yin and yang here. How do you choose where you're going to go? And I just add a little context to that. It seems in the last 2 years, there has been no shortage of many places you could go. What goes into that decision and where you're going to go?
That's a great question. One of the things I like about the organization is that it's often driven by the passion of the individual people who are in it and the connections that they have. And, John would never have wanted to go have a orphanage in Romania. I'm pretty sure about that, except that I
sure
pounded, begged, pleaded, we have to do this. And of course he agreed. There's a group in Haiti of people in Florida who their passion is Haiti. They know Haiti. And they bring a lot to the table with it. And it's sort of not really a situation, I think, where you can say, oh, we'd like you to go to X place, without having that person have some skin in the game. So I think it's all up to the people who we're really connected with in some projects. Other ones, it really does matter about the scope of the problem, whether usually it's a natural disaster and whether it's easy to get to, and probably do we have connections there? And John, I'll let you go from there since you are the connections person.
No, you're mostly right. That's pretty much it. If we have a direct connectivity that we can get in, again, really fast, and we have access to materials, maybe things like that, then that's obviously a big factor. Things in the U.S. are good because, we're in the United States. We can respond to, we can always go down, we know the United States. I mean, we don't have any problem with that. Other things are, Fukushima in Japan. Well, we don't deal with nuclear, nuclear waste. We're not going to go there. We couldn't get into the Philippines after the big hurricane there. We were scheduled to go to Pakistan after the earthquake there, and they blew up our hotel before we flew out. So we said, maybe that's not the place for us. Fires. We haven't figured out fires yet, how we can help. Like in California with the wildfires. Tornadoes are hard because it's just a swath of a half a mile wide, and those people need help. And, so there's a lot of things that go into it. Connectivity is a big deal. And can we assess, can we actually do, are we going to be a burden, or are we going to be able to help people out? That's the bottom line.
And one of the things that's kind of cool about this group, I think, Ruth, is that, we have relationships with the people there often, not always, but often for a long time. Like we'll always have a relationship in Romania and in Nepal, in Haiti, and even in while tornadoes are hard, John and some others went to the tornado in Kentucky and have a great relationship with a couple who, and it's been directly helping this is real people in crisis. There were 21 foster kids and 2 parents, and the good that was done for those guys and keeping in touch with them. It's good for us, but it's really good for them also to know that someone continues to care and just didn't show up, do something, and take off.
Are you taking everything then in with you? For example, we'll share some pictures of you in Ukraine, and it looks like you're handing out water and there's some food items and things like that. So are you even schlepping it to wherever you go? Or does that kind of depend on what your connections are? John?
It depends on the area. So, United States, there's so much abundance here of everything, right? We could just go wherever we're going and buy what we need. If there's special, we had to bring our tools with us to Mali, Africa, which we burnt out, in the first couple of hours, I think, unfortunately. But we like, if we can, to buy local, because it helps the economy a little bit. But Ukraine, they have a Lidl's there, they have the Metro, all the equivalents of Costco's and Stop and Shops and A&Ps and whatever you want to call it.
On the Romanian side of the border.
And on the Romanian side. So there was plenty there for us to do what we wanted to do. And this was essentially a food and water and
Elizabeth, do you think you all will go back into Ukraine?
Yeah, we just talked about that last night. I think there's I don't, or maybe you don't know. The orphanage now is home to Ukrainian refugees. Our last child from the orphanage graduated from high school this week. Yay!
Congrats!
Yeah, and
yay.
We have a family there, and we have our garage is loaded with as a food pantry. So we're feeding 47 families in the area who are also staying in apartments who are refugees from Ukraine. But the next step is, we want to continue to help them because they will need help for a long time. But then the next step is what can we do inside Ukraine? And I think that's John's next step, or maybe where he's going to go. I'm hoping so anyway.
How many hundreds of thousands of people have you helped? Do you ever put a count to it? Even though it's direct and not, of a bigger organizational scale.
Yeah, it's hard to, and again, each mission is different and has different needs. I think we calculated it out once in Puerto Rico, and we went into the mountains in Puerto Rico, and nobody had been there yet for weeks after that hurricane. And everybody got a 5-gallon bucket filled with rice and beans and canned meat and enough to feed a family of 4. We estimated for 2 weeks. And
the bucket was a water filter.
Yeah, the bucket turns into a water filter, and these people were drinking out of this river that was gross. So we were happy to be there and show up. They were happy to see us, as you can imagine. And each one of those filters used properly would pound out 100,000 gallons of clean water. So that's pretty cool.
That's very, very cool. I know we have just a few minutes left. Where is the best place for people to find out information? And what do you need now?
Social media people. That's Elizabeth.
Well, the website is you pretty much up to date. And it definitely has the place where you can go donate there. And we can let you know exactly where your money's going if you want to do that. We also have our social media is kept up daily. Or a couple times a week, 3-4 times a week, especially during the situation with Ukraine. So people can find us there, and they can also send us an email through the website or a direct message, especially on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter for that matter.
And it's unitedaidfoundation.org.
Yes.
All right. I hate to give you a number of words, but in a few words, why do you keep doing this work? It's hard work. John?
I get more out of it than the people that I serve. That's the bottom line. It's amazing work. It's the kind of good that we're good at. I never say that other good isn't good because, reading to children or moving the bingo, calling out the bingo numbers at the old folks home is good. And mine's no better than yours. Congratulations. This is what we're good at.
Elizabeth?
There's a quote I really love. It was a woman who worked in Arkansas with women in poverty in my very first TV job. Her name was Miss Yuba Winton. And she said to me, Elizabeth, when justice is to be done and there's no one else around, there you are. And I really believe if there's something needs to be done and nobody's doing it, well, I guess it's me. And I think that really drives me, and I believe in it, and it makes a difference, and it matters. And that's why I keep doing it. It matters. It does.
You're doing wonderful work. What a wise lady. I love that quote. Keep doing it. Keep doing it and keep us up to date on all that you're doing. And we just urge our audience, go to www.unitedaidfoundation.org. See how you can make a difference, one person to another. What a better way to connect. And thank you both for your time.
Oh, thank you so much. I love your
Thanks,
show, by the way.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Watch out. We'll ask you for a testimonial before you know it.
No problem on that.
Bring it on. Bring it on.
Thank you for joining us for KC Cares, Kansas City's nonprofit voice. We're produced by Charitable Communications, also a nonprofit. And this KC Cares segment was brought to you by the Ewing Marion Kauffman Foundation, www.kauffman.org. If you'd like to be a guest on KC Cares or underwriting opportunities, please visit our website, kccaresonline.org, and spread the love. Find us on Facebook and Twitter at KC Cares Radio and Instagram at KC Cares Online. Want to go hear us on radio? You can do that Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. on ESPN 1510 a.m. and 94.5 FM. Thank you for joining us for KC Cares.